It was 2:17 a.m. when the screen flickered and someone inside the dead girl's room moved. Nina dropped her coffee. She had been scrubbing through the footage for hours, her eyes burning from the blue glow of the editing suite monitors. The footage was from a cold case file, one the station wouldn't air. A girl named Leila Monroe, 19 years old, vanished 2 years ago after texting her mom, "I'm home safe." Her apartment showed no signs of struggle, but her body was found 5 days later, curled in the fetal position inside her closet, eyes wide open, like she'd seen something she couldn't escape. The security footage had never been released. Until now. Nina's job as a freelance editor for Signal Wire TV, an online series that covered real-world horror stories, often meant she dealt with shaky interviews and dimly lit hallway cams. But this footage wasn't like anything she'd worked on before. She hit rewind. The timestamp blinked. 2:15 a.m. Leila enters her bedroom. 2:17 a.m. she vanishes. There's no jump cut, no edit, no blur. She's there then. She's not. But just before the frame clears, something flickers on the edge of the screen. A distortion, like another figure. Nina paused the video and took a deep breath. The apartment had only one entry point, and the hallway cam had shown no one coming in or out. There was no logical way anyone else could be in that room. She zoomed into the frame, pixel by pixel, and then she saw it, in the corner of the mirror, a reflection, a pale face, hollow eyes, watching Leila, smiling. Nina recoiled, her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. But before she could dial Detective Morgan, the retired cop who had given her the footage, her screen went black. All 3 monitors gone. Her office light buzzed, then popped. Complete darkness, and then the file played again by itself. No mouse click, no input. But this time Leila turned and looked straight at Nina through the screen, not at the camera, at her. Nina screamed and unplugged everything. Sweat rolled down her spine like ice water. She backed away from the desk and slammed the door shut behind her. Nina sat across from Morgan in his dusty garage-turned office. The man looked thinner than before, more nervous. His eyes darted to every corner of the room like shadows were following him. "I told you not to go through it alone," he said, sliding a whiskey glass across the table. "That tape, it's cursed, Nina." "That's ridiculous," she snapped, even though her voice trembled. "It's just corrupted footage. Maybe someone tampered with it before we got it." He shook his head. No, the footage was sealed, chain of custody intact. Only 3 people ever viewed it fully: the first detective, the coroner, and Leila's mother. All dead. Nina froze. "What do you mean, all dead?" "Heart attack, suicide. One just walked into traffic." After watching the full video, her hands gripped the glass tighter. He reached into a locked drawer and pulled out a burned DVD labeled Footage 2, Lake House. "I wasn't going to show this to anyone else," he said, voice low. "But maybe if we connect them, we'll finally understand what the hell this is." Nina didn't want to touch it, but she did, and that's when she noticed something she hadn't before. The handwriting on the disc was the same as the journal entry on Leila's desk. "Don't believe the video. It lies." Nina waited until it was dark. She knew she shouldn't watch it alone, but curiosity burned louder than fear. She slid the DVD into her backup player and hit play. Static, then water, then a girl screaming, but it wasn't from the video. It was coming from behind her. She turned around fast. No one there. When she looked back, the screen showed a man, drenched in blood, staring directly into the lens, and behind him, on the cabin wall, written in what looked like mud, or worse, "This is not the beginning. This is the second death." Her heart slammed against her ribs. Was this connected to Leila? Was there someone, or something pulling the strings behind these deaths? Nina didn't sleep that night, and when she woke up the next morning, the DVD was gone. Her windows were locked. her door bolted. No one could have entered, but on her bathroom mirror, smeared in fog, you saw me. Detective Morgan didn't pick up Nina's calls the next day. Not on the third ring, not on the fifth, not even after midnight. When she finally drove to his house, she found his front door wide open. The place had been ransacked, files shredded, lights smashed, whiskey bottles shattered on the floor, and on the wall in red marker, 5 words. Third video. She won't survive. Nina backed away in horror, but just as she turned to run, Morgan's body fell from the attic hatch. A noose wrapped around his neck and clutched in his lifeless hand. A third DVD. The rope creaked. The DVD case cracked. But Nina didn't scream, not until she saw what was written on Morgan's chest. Her name was never Leela. Nina staggered backward, nearly slipping on broken glass. The words were carved, not written, into his skin, as if he'd tried to send one last message, even in death. She grabbed the third DVD from his lifeless grip, barely able to breathe. It wasn't labeled like the others. It was scorched, melted slightly around the edges, but in the faintest red ink, one word was visible: Red Room. Nina knew the legends. Underground live streams, dark web shows, rooms where victims screamed into soundproof walls while anonymous viewers placed bets on how they'd die. But this couldn't be real. It had to be someone playing God with old footage. Right? She didn't drive home. She drove to the one place she knew had no Wi-Fi, no cell reception, and no neighbors, her late uncle's hunting cabin in the Smokies. She wasn't ready to die, not yet. Inside the cabin, 2:04 a.m., Nina placed the DVD into the generator player. The room was dead silent, just the hum of old tech and her breath. Click. Static. A countdown appeared on the screen. 10, 9, 8. But there was no menu, no options, no pause button. Just one message beneath the countdown: you watch. It watches back. She stood to yank the plug, but at 3, a new image froze the screen. A girl, duct taped to a chair, eyes wide, breathing fast. Nina's chest tightened. She recognized the room, the torn wallpaper, the rusted metal shelves. It was her uncle's cabin. This cabin. No, this had to be faked. She scanned the footage's metadata. The timecode said, live. Then the girl whispered a name, Nina. The camera zoomed in, and the girl wasn't a stranger. She was Nina, or a version of her, hair shorter, wearing a hoodie, she thought, she lost years ago. She was looking at herself, trapped, broken, begging, and then came the knocking, not from the screen, from the door behind her. 3 soft knocks, then silence. Nina turned slowly. No one was there, but taped to the outside of the door was a photograph. She peeled it off with trembling fingers. It was a still frame of her, watching the tape, taken seconds ago. From a camera angle above her that didn't exist, she dropped the photo and turned off the player. It turned itself back on. The next 3 days, blurred, sleep-deprived, foodless, alone, Nina kept playing the tape. It was the same every time, until she did something different. She paused at 12:11, into the footage. Her tape self looked slightly to the left, so Nina moved the camera manually. Behind her double, a wall scratched with hundreds of tally marks, but one of them wasn't a tally. It was a name, E.L. Monroe. Her blood ran cold. Monroe, Lila Monroe. She checked the coroner's file again. Full name, Elizabeth Leela Monroe. That wasn't the name on the birth certificate. E.L. Monroe was a pseudonym, a screen name. Leela wasn't her real name, but the name in the mirror, the one that appeared in that first found footage. It wasn't Leela's face in the reflection. It was Nina's. Nina drove 6 hours, straight back to the city, and broke into the police records archive with Morgan's keycard. She needed the original case files, not the digital versions. What she found chilled her deeper than anything before. A missing person report from 1995. Name, Elizabeth Liza Monroe, age 10, disappeared from same apartment Leila lived in 20 years later. Presumed abducted. Next page. A news clipping. Grieving family pleads for return of daughter. Father insists. Girl talked to the screen. Next to it, a photo of the little girl. Same eyes, same face. But it wasn't Lila. It was Nina, or someone who looked exactly like her. Decades before she was even born. She scanned the photos reverse. Red Room 01 file archived. Do not dig. And scribbled in different handwriting. The screen is not a window, it's a door. Back at her apartment, Nina threw all the DVDs into the sink and doused them in lighter fluid. She didn't care if this mystery stayed buried. She didn't care who was watching. She needed out. She lit the match. The sink burst into flame. But before she could turn away, her laptop powered on by itself, even unplugged. And it played a video she hadn't seen before, a grainy, silent recording. A newborn baby being held by gloved hands. In a lab, a nurse whispers something to the camera. Subject 9, regenerative memory imprint successful. She won't remember any of this until she sees herself again. Then the screen showed a birth certificate. Name, Nina Monroe. Date, classified. Mother, Elizabeth Monroe. Nina dropped to her knees. She wasn't a stranger to Leila. She wasn't investigating someone else's story. She was the story. And now, someone had made sure she remembered. Behind her, the TV flickered on once more, not playing a video, broadcasting live, showing her from behind, as a figure stepped out of the shadows on screen and into a room. She was screaming before. She even turned around, but the screen wasn't lying. He was already in the room. Nina stumbled backward, knocking over the chair, her arms flailing for anything to defend herself. The screen froze on. The image of the dark figure standing just inches behind her, but when she spun around, there was no one. Nothing. The apartment was empty. Still, but the door was unlocked. And the smell, that same sharp burnt plastic smell from the DVDs, was thick in the air, almost choking. Her laptop screen changed again, without her touching it. Now it displayed 2 words, run now. Then the screen blinked black, and the walls of her apartment began humming, a low, throbbing vibration, like the building was breathing, or waiting. She didn't even grab her bag. She ran. She drove until the city lights disappeared behind her, until her phone showed no service, until she felt like no one could follow. And yet, as she pulled into an abandoned gas station at the edge of a ghost town, her headlights caught something in the distance. A figure, standing still, in a white mask, not moving, just watching. Nina backed up fast. The tires skidded over, cracked concrete. She didn't stop until the gas station disappeared behind her. And still, her phone buzzed. No service, no signal. But the message popped up anyway. You shouldn't have remembered. After 2 days of hiding in an old motel, under a fake name, Nina finally did what she'd been avoiding. She rewatched the original 3 videos on a burner laptop, frame by frame. Not just what was obvious, but what was hidden. And that's when she saw it, in each video, buried in the static. There were coordinates, white numbers flashing every 34 seconds for less than 1/10 of a second. Coordinates pointing to the same place. Black, Hollow Orphanage, a now abandoned institution in rural Kentucky, burned down in 1998. No survivors. She knew that name years ago. During a class project on forgotten institutions, she'd come across a photograph of that very building. But back then, it was called something else. The Monroe Institute for Lost Children. Her last name, her family. She arrived at the site just after sunset. Only the stone skeleton of the main structure still stood. Charred walls, shattered windows, nature reclaiming what horror once thrived in. But when she stepped inside, the air felt wrong, warm, as if someone had just left. And beneath the soot and ash A staircase descended into the earth, unburnt, untouched, lit by flickering red lights. Like a heart still beating, she followed it down, down, until she reached a hallway lined with iron doors, each marked with a Roman numeral. I-2, 3, all the way to IX.9. She reached out. The door opened by itself. Inside, a room that mirrored the red room from the tapes. Exactly. Same metal chair, same bleeding wallpaper, same bloodstains on the floor. Only one thing was different now. A woman was sitting in the chair. Alive, UNMOVING. Face hidden behind a mirror mask. Nina's voice cracked. "Who are you?" The woman turned her head slowly. Then she spoke, and the voice was hers. "Nina's. You asked the wrong questions, Nina. And now you're back where you started." Nina stepped closer. The woman reached up and removed the mask. Nina screamed. It was her, but older, pale, eyes hollow, hair grayer, shoulders slumped like a marionette, left hanging too long. "You're me," she whispered. "No," the woman rasped. "You're me. From before." "Before what?" "Before you died." Nina's stomach turned. The woman explained, in clipped fragments, like a half-corrupted AI spitting out corrupted files. "You were born here, a subject, Clone 9, the only one who survived full memory transfer. They needed someone to relive the horror, to trap it on tape, to bait the world's attention. It worked. You ran, you watched, you remembered. But the remembering resets everything. Your timeline is a loop. You die in the room. You wake up in the city. You investigate. You burn the DVDs. You die again. Every single time." Nina staggered, back gasping. "No, I made it further. I uncovered more this time." The woman smiled bitterly. "And that's why he's coming for you now." From behind the chair, a machine clicked on an old VCR, connected to a small screen. A final tape inserted itself. Label 10. Last chance. The screen flickered to life. It showed Nina, standing exactly where she was now, in the room, facing the woman in the chair. But in the video, Nina was bleeding, screaming, tied down, and behind her, a figure in a black suit. No face, no voice, just breath. She turned. "No one there yet." Double quotes make a different choice this time, the woman begged. "Burn it all. Even your memories." "What do you mean? End the cycle?" She reached under the chair, pulled out a vial and a lighter. "Drink this. It severs the loop, erases everything. All memories, all connections. But I'll forget who I am. You never knew." Nina hesitated. The floor above creaked. The lights flickered red to blue. The shadow was coming. Nina held the vial in one hand, the lighter in the other. She looked at the woman, her older self, who now smiled through tears. "If you forget," the woman whispered, "he loses his power. The tapes are worthless without your fear. But I lose myself. You never had a self. You were built to suffer. This is your rebellion." The footsteps grew louder. Nina backed into the wall, tears streaking down her face. She thought of Morgan, of the girl on the screen whispering her name, of the looping messages, the silence, the lies. She looked into her own eyes and drank black. A girl named Emily sits on a park bench, camera in hand. She doesn't know why she loves filming abandoned places. It's just a pull, a tug, a hunger to explore what others forget. She pulls out a dusty VHS she found in an old gas station last week. It's labeled only Red Room 09. She laughs to herself. Probably just some creepy indie student film. She pops it into a portable player. Static, a heartbeat, a girl tied to a chair. She leans closer. Something about the girl is familiar. The girl looks up at the camera and whispers her name, Emily. She didn't remember her name, but the girl on the screen did. Emily stared at the VHS player as if it had just whispered her soul aloud. The girl in the video, beaten, strapped to a chair, covered in blood, looked like her. Same eyes, same mole under the left eyebrow, same scar on the chin from a fall. She couldn't recall. And that voice, it wasn't just similar, it was hers, whispering a name she hadn't used since childhood. Emily, please, don't watch this. Then the tape erupted into static, and something behind her clicked. She turned. The door to her apartment, which she always kept locked, was ajar. Only one thought raced through her. It's starting again. Emily ran. Not from the apartment, but into it. She needed answers. She needed the box, the one she'd found months ago in the abandoned gas station, buried beneath moldy tiles, behind the broken freezer. Inside had been the VHS, but also photos, crumpled ID cards, a newspaper clipping. She spread it all on the floor. Photo 1, a girl, unmistakably her, standing in front of an orphanage that didn't exist on any map. ID card, Nina Monroe. Subject, EIC's, memory transfer, protocol newspaper, fire. Destroys secret medical facility. No bodies found. Her hands trembled. She wasn't Emily, or maybe she had been. But now, she was Nina. Again, or still. And something wanted her to remember, wanted her stuck. That's when she noticed the tape again. The static was gone. Now it played something new. A hallway, metal doors, numbers etched in iron. A hand reached toward. Door IX. Inside, a small girl, curled in the corner, crying. Emily's breath caught. She knew this room. She had been there. The flashback came, like a knife. She was 9, or maybe 19. Age was a blur, but the pain was clear. The injections, the screaming, the machine that made her watch herself suffer, over and over, until she couldn't tell if the memories were hers or planted. They had forced her to relive the experiments, all captured on tape, in hopes of capturing true, emotional responses from a clone built only to survive, not feel. But she'd broken the rules. She did feel, and worse, she remembered. That was her crime. The loop was her prison, rebirth, fear, realization, death, repeat, always tied to a screen, always filmed until now, because something had gone wrong. She'd escaped the loop, but the loop was coming back for her. There was only one way out. She had to go back to the ruins, to the orphanage, to the real Door X. The roads were half by time. The structure a collapsed skeleton, but the underground facility still pulsed with unnatural life. When she descended the old staircase again, it felt like walking through a dream she couldn't forget or fully see. And yet, the iron doors waited, as if time had frozen them in place. This time, Door X creaked open before she touched it. Inside, a girl, younger, maybe 9, looking up at her, wide-eyed. It was her again, another version, one they hadn't erased yet. Nina, the girl asked, voice trembling. Emily. Nina dropped to her knees. Yes, I'm you. But I got out, and I came back for you. The girl crawled into her arms. I've been waiting. Tears spilled freely. I know, but we're ending it now. For both of us. But the moment they stood, the lights went black. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. The screens flickered on. One by one, each screen showed a different looped version of Nina's life. One where she died screaming. One where she burned herself alive. One where she ran, but never made it out. One where she watched others die for her. A voice filled the room, mechanical, ageless, male and female at once. You don't get to leave. Subject X, you're the archive, the fear seed. Without you, the data dies. You are the tapes. Nina held the little girl tighter. No, not anymore. The floor beneath them began to shake. The ceiling cracked. Dust and ash rained down on the far wall. A vault door opened. Behind it, hundreds of tapes. labeled with names, dates, emotions, children's, memories, suffering captured, catalogued, studied. She stared into the room and pulled the lighter from her pocket. She looked at the little girl one last time. This will hurt, but it'll be real. The girl nodded, eyes wide. I'd rather burn than be a loop. Nina smiled through tears. You're braver than I ever was. She lit the fire. It spread fast. The tapes screamed as they melted. Not physically, but through the speakers, through the walls, like souls being set free. The voice returned, panicked now. Stop, this is all you are. If you burn us, you burn yourself. Nina didn't hesitate. I was never yours to keep. She carried the girl back through the hallway as flames swallowed the corridors. The screen in the hallway blinked once more before cracking into sparks. Loop terminated. Emily sat on a park bench, watching a group of kids playing in the distance. She felt ... light, not because she remembered who she was, but because she didn't. And that was the point. The nightmares had stopped. The whispering was gone. She was no longer Nina, just Emily. Normal, human. Alive. She looked down at the book in her lap. A journal, one page only, written in a child's handwriting. Dear me, if you're reading this, it means we made it out. We're not a tape anymore. We're not an experiment. We're a real person. Don't look back. Just live. Nina, Emily, smiled. The wind blew soft against her face, and for the first time in any of her lives, she didn't feel watched. She felt free. The end.